The twin suns of Rethar burned bright over the great alien marketplace. The air shimmered with heat and noise. Thousands of alien species moved between glowing stalls, some with scales, some with fur, some made of metal and light. The smell of roasted fruits and strange oils filled the air. Among them walked a single human, a man named Evan. He kept his hood low and his steps quiet. Humans were rare here and not always welcome. He came to trade spare parts from his small ship, hoping to earn enough credits to buy fuel and leave this planet behind. Evan felt the eyes on him, curious, fearful, sometimes hateful. Alien voices whispered as he passed. He ignored them. He had seen worse in the outer colonies. But deep down he still felt that heavy loneliness that came from being the only human for 100 light years. He moved toward a stall where metal tools were stacked high. The alien merchant, with 4 thin arms and green skin, looked up suspiciously. "Human?" the merchant hissed. "You come alone? Brave or stupid?" Evan gave a tired smile. "Maybe both. I just need some plasma connectors." The merchant grumbled and began counting pieces. Evan turned slightly, scanning the crowd. That was when he heard it, a voice that froze his blood, a child's scream, high, sharp, and full of excitement, not fear.
"Dad, I want him!"
the voice shouted. Then louder, echoing across the market. "Dad, I want that human to be my brother." The entire marketplace fell silent. Hundreds of alien heads turned toward the sound. Evan looked up slowly. At the center of the crowd stood a huge alien male, scales glinting black and gold under the twin suns. His body was built like a living tank, thick armor plates across his chest. His eyes glowed amber. That was Rokar, a warlord from the southern clans. Everyone knew his name. Beside him stood a small alien girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with pale lavender skin, big golden eyes, and tiny horns curling above her head. She was adorable and fearless. She pointed straight at Evan with both hands, laughing. The guards around Rokar reacted instantly. Blasters rose, targeting the human. The crowd backed away in fear. Humans and Rokar's kind were not supposed to stand this close without permission. Evan's heart pounded. He lifted both hands slowly, showing he was unarmed. "Hey, I don't know what this is about," he said quietly. The girl only smiled brighter and shouted again, "Dad, I want him. I want him to be my brother." The father turned to his daughter. "Lyra," he growled softly, "you do not shout like that in public." "But I like him," the girl said, her voice trembling with emotion. "He looks kind. He looks lonely." Rokar's eyes shifted to Evan. His stare was cold, the kind of stare that could break mountains. The silence stretched. The guards waited for his order. Evan stood still. Every instinct told him to run, but something in that little girl's face, the innocence, the warmth, held him in place. Finally, Rokar spoke. "Human," he said, his deep voice echoing like thunder. "Why does my daughter claim you as her blood?" Evan swallowed hard. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe because she sees something you don't." The market gasped. No one dared speak to Rokar that way. No one except a fool or someone who truly didn't fear death. The warlord's eyes narrowed. For a moment, Evan thought his end had come. Then Rokar laughed, a deep, strange sound like rocks breaking. He raised one hand and the guards lowered their weapons. "Interesting," the alien leader said. "Very interesting." "Come with me, human," the crowd whispered as Evan followed Rokar and his daughter through the marketplace. Some laughed nervously, others cursed softly. "That human is doomed," one alien muttered. "No one walks into Rokar's den and returns alive." But Evan walked anyway. Because the little girl, Lyra, kept turning around to smile at him, her eyes shining with pure trust. They reached a massive armored transport at the edge of the city. The doors opened with a hiss, revealing polished metal floors and guards standing like statues. Inside, the temperature was cooler. The walls shimmered with alien technology that pulsed like veins of light. Rokar sat on a wide seat that looked like a throne. Lyra climbed beside him, still staring at Evan. "Sit," Rokar ordered. Evan obeyed. His hands rested on his knees, his heart still racing. "Few humans come to Rethar," Rokar said. "Fewer still survive our markets without being robbed or eaten. And now my daughter screams she wants you as her brother. Explain this madness." Evan shook his head. "I can't explain it. I was just buying parts, maybe." "She saw something familiar in me." Rokar tilted his head. "Familiar?" Evan sighed. She said I looked lonely. Maybe she's right. There was a silence. Even the guards looked surprised by his honesty. Rokar stared at him for a long moment, then looked at Lyra. She lost her mother last winter, he said quietly. Since then, she speaks to the stars at night. She says she dreams of a brother who comes from beyond the void. Evan's chest tightened. He glanced at Lyra, who nodded eagerly. Yes, I saw you in my dream. You were standing in the dark, holding a light. You said, don't cry. Evan didn't know what to say. He had never believed in fate, but the sincerity in her eyes made him doubt himself. Rokar leaned back. Dreams or fate, I do not care. You have stepped into something dangerous, human. My name carries enemies. If they see you near my child, they will come for you. I've faced worse, Evan said quietly. Maybe not bigger, but worse. Rokar's eyes gleamed amid the first hint of respect. He rose to his full height, towering over Evan. Then you will come to my home. Lyra will have her wish, for one meal. After that, you will leave this planet and never return. Evan nodded slowly. All right. One meal. Lyra clapped her small hands and laughed, her voice bright and pure. Rokar gave a half-smile, rare for his kind, and turned toward the ship's controls. As the transport rose into the orange sky, Evan looked out the window. The alien city faded beneath them, a maze of spires, smoke, and shining domes. He thought of Earth, of how far he was from home. He didn't know that this single encounter, a little girl's innocent cry, would change everything. They arrived at Rokar's fortress by dusk. It was carved into a mountain, glowing with torches and blue energy veins that pulsed like living fire. Servants bowed as they entered, whispering to each other about the human guest. At dinner, the long hall shimmered with silver plates and steaming alien food. Lyra sat beside Evan, talking nonstop, asking about Earth, about humans, about oceans and birds. Her curiosity was endless, Evan answered patiently, smiling more than he had in years. She laughed at his strange words and made him taste alien fruits that glowed faintly. Across the table, Rokar watched silently. There was a strange calm in his eyes, something heavy yet peaceful. After dinner, Lyra ran off to fetch a drawing. She returned with a small piece of metal etched with glowing lines, her art. It showed a tall figure with human features and a small alien girl holding hands under twin suns. This is us, she said proudly. Evan looked at it for a long moment, then smiled softly. It's beautiful. Rokar's deep voice broke the silence. You know she does not draw anyone else, he said. Only the dream brother she claims will come for her. Evan looked down, feeling an ache in his chest he couldn't explain. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. The storm wind screamed against the fortress walls. Somewhere beyond those clouds, stars shone cold and distant. Lyra yawned and leaned against him, falling asleep. Evan carefully lifted her and carried her to her room. She whispered in her sleep, "Don't go away, brother." He froze at those words. Something deep inside him shifted. Something he hadn't felt in years. When he returned to the hall, Rokar was standing by the window, watching the storm. The alien warlord spoke without turning. She trusts you already. Be careful, human. The council will not like this. They fear what they do not understand, Evan nodded quietly. I've seen fear before. I'll leave after tomorrow, like you said. Rokar finally turned to face him. His glowing eyes held a strange softness. Perhaps fate had other plans. The thunder cracked again. Outside, lightning lit the night. And in that flash, Evan's reflection and Rokar's seemed almost the same. Two souls from different stars, standing on the edge of something neither yet understood. And above them, in her small room, the alien girl dreamed again. This time of a family that didn't end in loss. The morning on Rathar began with golden light spilling across the fortress walls. Mist rolled down the mountain cliffs like slow rivers. Birds with crystal wings glided above the towers. Inside, Evan woke to the faint sound of laughter. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then the strange scent of metal and spice reminded him. He was in the home of Rokar, the alien warlord. He walked out of the guest chamber and saw Lyra, the little alien girl, running across the hall. Her small horns shimmered as she waved. "Good morning, brother," she shouted happily. Evan blinked. "Brother? Yes." She nodded fast. "Dad said you can stay for breakfast." Rokar stood at the far end of the room, speaking with his guards. When he noticed Evan, he dismissed them with a wave. "Human, join us." Evan followed them into a wide dining hall. The table stretched long, filled with strange dishes that glowed faintly. The air smelled like fruit and heat. Lyra sat beside him, humming softly. She placed something on his plate, a small red cube that steamed gently. "It's sweet," she said. "Try it." Evan hesitated, then took a bite. To his surprise, it melted like sugar and filled his mouth with warmth. "Not bad," he said. Lyra smiled wide. "See? You can live here." Rokar laughed under his breath. "You are bold, child." "I'm honest," she replied proudly. "He makes the room brighter." For a moment, even Rokar's hard face softened. But then his expression darkened again. "Brightness attracts shadows," he muttered. "And we have many." After breakfast, Evan walked outside with Lyra. The fortress garden spread across the cliffside. Glowing plants, floating stones, and small fountains that sang softly. Lyra pointed toward the sky. "My mother used to sit there," she said, pointing to a bench carved from crystal rock. "She said the stars talk if you listen." Evan sat beside her. "Do they still talk to you?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. Last night they said, 'Don't be afraid, little one.' He's here now." Evan looked at her gentle face. "You mean me?" She smiled. "You came from the stars like they said." He wanted to laugh it off, but something about her calm tone made him quiet. He felt as if the universe had indeed pushed him into this strange moment. To meet this strange child who saw kindness where no one else did. Later, inside the great hall, Rokar stood before the council envoys, armored aliens bearing the mark of the High Council. Their leader, a tall creature with silver eyes, spoke sharply. "You have broken code, Rokar. Humans are not allowed in noble homes. The council forbids such contact." Rokar stood like a statue. "He is my guest. My daughter requested it. The law does not bend for children." The envoy snapped. "The human must leave before sunset. If you refuse, the council will act." Evan, who had just entered the hall, heard every word. Lyra was standing behind a column, trembling. Rokar's voice lowered to a growl. "You speak to me as if I am your servant. Do you forget whose armies protect your borders?" The envoy stepped closer. "Do you forget who grants you power to rule your land? Defy us and your name will burn." Evan could see Rokar's claws flex. For a moment he thought a fight would break out. Then Rokar turned away, fists tight. "Leave," he said. The envoys smirked and walked out, their boots echoing like hammers. When the doors closed, Lyra ran forward, tears in her eyes. "Dad, no. Don't send him away," she cried. Rokar turned to her, his expression heavy. "It is not my wish, child. It is the law. I hate the law," she shouted. "I'll run away if he leaves." Her words struck the room like lightning. Rokar froze. His soldiers looked away in shock. No one dared speak to the warlord like that, not even his own blood. Evan stepped forward carefully. "Lyra." She turned to him, eyes full of tears. "You said you wouldn't go away." He knelt down. "I don't want to, but this is your father's world, not mine." She shook her head violently. "You're my brother now. You said so last night when I was dreaming." Rokar's head snapped toward him. "What does she mean?" Evan hesitated. "She dreamed that I said I'd protect her." Rokar stared, then sighed. Dreams, always dreams. But inside, something in him cracked. The same pain he had buried when his mate died returned, sharp and raw. That night the fortress was quiet. The wind howled outside and lightning flashed across the mountains. Evan couldn't sleep. He stood by the window looking at the stars. He thought about leaving before dawn. Maybe that was best. He didn't belong here. Then he heard soft footsteps. Lyra was standing in the doorway, wrapped in a blanket. "Brother," she whispered, "are you leaving?" Evan looked at her small face. "Maybe. Your people don't want me here." She walked closer. "But I want you here." He knelt and hugged her gently. Her tiny hands clutched his shirt. "Why do you care so much about me, Lyra?" she whispered. "Because when I'm near you, it doesn't hurt inside." Evan's chest tightened. He had no words for that. He just held her as thunder rolled again. At that moment, Rokar entered the room silently. He saw them, the little alien girl hugging the human, both bathed in moonlight. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he said quietly, "You would protect her even when my kind calls you enemy." Evan looked up, still holding the child. "Yes," Rokar's voice was low and strange. "Why?" "Because no one protected me when I needed it," Evan said simply. I won't let her feel that pain. The warlord's eyes glowed faintly. Then maybe fate truly sent you. He turned and walked away, leaving the door open to the storm. The next morning, everything changed. The council envoys returned, this time with soldiers. Their ships surrounded the fortress. The air hummed with the sound of plasma engines. Evan woke to the alarms. He rushed to the hall where Rokar was already in battle armor, sword blazing with energy. Get Lyra to safety, Rokar commanded. Evan didn't argue. He found her in her room, clutching her glowing toy sphere, eyes wide with fear. They're here for you, she whispered. He picked her up and ran toward the side corridors. The fortress shook with explosions. Guards shouted in alien tongues. They reached the hidden passage behind the crystal garden. But before they could escape, the silver-eyed envoy appeared, blocking the path with soldiers. The law is the law, he said coldly. Give us the human and the girl will live. Evan put Lyra behind him. You'll have to go through me, the envoy smirked. Gladly, energy bolts flashed. Evan rolled to the side, grabbing a fallen staff. He fought with desperate strength, blocking blasts, striking armor plates. The air burned around him. Rokar appeared like a thunder god, smashing into the enemy line. His roar shook the walls. You will not touch my child. The hall turned into chaos, fire, smoke, screams. Evan and Rokar fought side by side, two worlds united by one child's love. But during the fight, Rokar was hit. The blast threw him against a wall. His armor cracked, blood shimmering like molten gold. Rokar, Evan shouted. He rushed to his side, lifting him up. Take her, Rokar groaned. Go now, no, Lyra cried. Dad! Rokar smiled weakly at her. Be strong, my little star. Evan's heart pounded. He grabbed Lyra and carried her through the smoke as Rokar fought off the last attackers. They reached the cliff tunnel and stumbled into the open air. Behind them, the fortress blazed like a dying sun. They hid in a cave that night. Lyra sat quietly beside the small fire Evan built. Her face was pale, eyes empty. Will he die? She whispered. Evan looked into the flames. He's too strong to die, but deep down he wasn't sure. At dawn, the storm cleared. Evan stepped outside the cave. The horizon was pink and silver. Lyra came out and held his hand. Where do we go now? He looked toward the mountain. Smoke still rose from the fortress. Back, he said finally. We're not running anymore. She nodded bravely. Then I'll go with you. Together they started walking. A human and a small alien girl side by side under the twin suns. Evan didn't know what waited ahead, war, peace, or exile. But one thing was certain. He would not let anyone take her again. And far away inside the broken fortress, Rokar, still alive but wounded, whispered to himself, if he survives this day, he will be my son. The sky of Rethar was painted red from the fires of the warlord's fortress. Smoke climbed high like black rivers. The air trembled with the sound of faraway explosions. Evan and Lyra kept walking through the broken mountain path. The twin suns rose behind them, lighting their faces. One human, one alien child. Both tired, both afraid. Evan's hands were scraped, his jacket torn, but he didn't stop. He carried Lyra when her small legs shook. He had promised himself he would protect her, even if the whole world turned against them. They reached a ridge where they could see the city far below. Towers of silver, ships flying like insects across the horizon. Lyra pointed weakly. Dad is down there. I feel it. Evan nodded. Then that's where we'll go. They followed the hidden mountain tunnels that led toward the capital valley. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Strange glowing insects buzzed around them, lighting the walls with soft green light. Lyra looked up at him. Are you scared? Evan smiled slightly. Only of failing you. You won't, she said simply. The stars chose you. Her words echoed in his mind. The stars chose you. He didn't believe in fate, but he believed in her. That was enough. At the edge of the city, guards patrolled every street. Posters with Evan's face, a human outline, were glowing on digital walls. The council had declared him an intruder, a danger to the order. They found an old mechanic who knew Evan from the marketplace. The old alien hid them in a dusty hangar. You shouldn't have come back, the alien said nervously. The council is hunting you both. They said you tried to kidnap the warlord's daughter. Evan clenched his jaw. They're lying. I know, the alien sighed. But truth doesn't matter here, human. Only power. Lyra tugged on Evan's sleeve. We can't hide forever. Dad needs us. Evan looked out the door. He could see the council's tower in the distance, tall, black, shining like ice. He knew what he had to do. I'll bring him back, he whispered. That night, Evan carried Lyra into the city under the cover of the storm. Rain poured down the metal streets. He wrapped her in his jacket, keeping her close. The council's palace was guarded by drones and soldiers. But Evan had learned to move like a shadow in war. He slipped through service tunnels and maintenance vents until he reached the inner courtyard. There, under the glowing symbols of the council, he saw Rokar, bound in energy chains, surrounded by alien judges. His armor was gone, his body bruised, but his spirit still burned. The silver-eyed envoy, the same one who attacked the fortress, stood before him. You broke the sacred law, Rokar. You let a human near your bloodline. You will die for this treason. Rokar lifted his head. You call it treason. I call it love, the envoy sneered. Then die with your love. He raised his weapon. That was the moment Evan moved. He burst from the shadows like lightning, swinging a metal pipe. The weapon flew from the envoy's hand. Guards turned, shouting. Energy blasts filled the air. Evan ducked, rolled, and struck again. He fought with wild strength, protecting Lyra, who hid behind a pillar, her eyes wide with fear. Rokar roared, tearing against his chains. Evan, behind you! Evan spun just in time to block a blast that sent him crashing to the ground. Pain shot through his chest. The envoy stepped closer, weapon glowing. You should have stayed in the shadows, human. You were never meant to be part of this world. Evan coughed blood but smiled. Then maybe it's time your world changed. The envoy raised the weapon again, but before he could fire, a small voice cried out, Stop! Lyra ran forward, her hands glowing faintly with strange energy, the same light that shimmered in her father's eyes. Don't hurt them, she screamed. He's my brother. The energy burst from her tiny body, forming a bright shield around Evan and Rokar. The guards fell back, blinded by the flash. Rokar's chains cracked and broke. He stood free once more and grabbed his fallen sword. The energy in his body roared to life like a storm. The envoy stumbled back, terrified. Impossible. Rokar raised his sword. You talk about law, but the law means nothing without honor. He turned to Evan. You fought for my child. You stood when others ran. You are my son now, human. He drew his blade across his palm, letting golden blood drip onto the floor. The drops glowed, forming ancient runes of fire. I invoke the blood oath of kinship, he thundered. By the stars, by the clans, by my name. I make this human my second-born. My blood, my brother, my family. The light from the oath filled the hall. The council members screamed and fled. The envoy tried to attack, but the glowing runes burned through his armor, throwing him across the room. When the light faded, Evan stood, breathing hard. The wound in his chest no longer hurt. Rokar placed a massive hand on his shoulder. From this day, none shall harm you or the child. You are of my house, not forever. Lyra ran to them and hugged both tightly. We're family now, she whispered. Later that night, the three of them stood on the tower balcony. The city below was quiet again. Rokar looked at the stars. The council will return. They never forgive rebellion. Evan nodded. Then we'll be ready. Lyra smiled up at them. Maybe the stars will protect us, Rokar laughed softly. Maybe they already have. He looked at Evan, his golden eyes warm. You could leave, you know. You have a ship. You could fly far away and never come back. Evan smiled faintly. And miss my little sister's stories? Not a chance, Rokar's deep voice softened. Then welcome home, human. Years passed, the war ended. The council fell. New peace spread across the galaxy. And on Rethar, stories began to travel from star to star. Stories about a human who became brother to an alien girl, and how their bond changed two species forever. Children sang about the Star Brother, who fought without armor and loved without fear. In the great hall of Rokar's rebuilt fortress, Evan sat beside the grown Lyra, now a young woman with bright eyes and a proud spirit. She was the new ambassador of Rethar, speaking for peace among all races. Every time she spoke to the galaxy, she told the same story. When I was little, I screamed for a brother, and the stars sent me one. The crowds always laughed and cheered. But when she turned to look at Evan, her eyes always shone with quiet gratitude. One night, years later, Lyra walked alone to the garden where her mother once sat. Evan followed her quietly. The twin suns had long set and the stars burned across the sky like silver rivers. Lyra whispered, "Do you ever miss your world, brother?" Evan looked up at the stars. "Every night. But when I look at you, I remember why I stayed." She smiled softly. "You're not from my world, but you made it home." He nodded. "And you made me believe again in family and hope." They stood together under the sky. A shooting star passed above. Lyra pointed. "Mom used to say that when a star falls, someone new is born." Evan smiled. "Then maybe another brother is coming." She laughed gently. "Then we'll be ready to welcome him too." Far away in the cold space beyond Rathar, a small human ship drifted close to the planet, its pilot staring down at the blue-green world glowing below. He spoke softly into his recorder. "Signal received. There's life here, maybe. Maybe not so different from us." The signal traveled across the stars. A faint echo, just like the one that once brought Evan to this world, and so the legend continued. Epilogue. On the walls of the new Hall of Kinship stood a single phrase carved in both human and alien language. "Family is not born of blood or species. It is chosen in the fire of courage and love." And beneath those words, two figures were carved in crystal, a human man holding the hand of a little alien girl, both looking up toward the same star. The story of Evan and Lyra became eternal, a reminder that even in the cold void between worlds, a single act of kindness could change galaxies forever.